Welcome to the In Her Image podcast. I'm your host, Andrea John. This is season 4, Formed, Becoming Who God Made You to Be. In this season, I get to sit down with incredible women for honest, weekly conversations as we explore the character traits of the Proverbs 31 woman. Pull up a chair and join the conversation. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Inner Image Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea John, and today I have another fabulous woman that I want you to meet. Her name is Mary, and she has a business and ministry that covers a topic that I personally think is amazing because the church does not do a very good job at teaching on or covering this topic. So I'm definitely a fan of hers and what she brings to the kingdom of God, because in a way it does bring wholeness into the person. So Mary, before we dive into it, I'd love for you to introduce yourself because I don't introduce my guests. I feel like you could do a better job at letting people know who you are, what you're about, what they should know about you. And then before we get into the topic of diligent, I actually want to talk a little bit about the topic that you focus on in your business and ministry, because I think all the women who listen in will benefit from it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that sounds great. And I want to tell something fun first because I know that helps people to latch hold of that kind of an idea. My husband and I are avid jet skiers. And of course, we live in Florida, so we can basically jet ski all year round. And he's off on a weekend trip jet skiing with some guys from work that he was treating. But we chose this as a shared hobby. And as a relationship coach, I always encourage couples to have a shared hobby. When you were dating, you did stuff together because you just wanted to be together. But as a married couple, it's really helpful if you plan something and you're intentional with that. And I am happily remarried to my husband, is my second marriage, and had a lot of sexual dysfunction in my first marriage, coercion that I wasn't even able to give language to until years and years later, and was in the church, leaders in the church when all that was going on. So God brought personal healing to my life. And the more I was healed, the more I talked about it to my friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then I realized this is an avenue where women feel very alone and where couples are left with little resources from a godly point of view. So I went back to school, got my master's degree, got more training specifically to relationship coaching and to Christian sex education. And that is what I do. And the church sometimes gives me some pushback, but I know it's God's design. His original design is to have this joyous place between couples. So I persevere to make sure that that gets heard because it's needed.
Yes, so needed. Obviously, I've known Mary for several years and I follow her and see what she posts. And I just think it's so amazing to take this topic that is taboo to many. I
Mm,
know for me growing up in the environment I did, we did not talk about sex. I was not taught about sex. You don't
right.
mention it. Even in the context of marriage, it was
Mm,
just not something mentioned. And in some ways, sex was used as a weapon against me.
yeah.
There was abuse in my previous marriage, in that regards as well. Like you mentioned, coercion, using the Bible
Mhm.
against me, and all of that stuff. So to know someone personally who teaches this stuff and helps
Mm,
couples. And I do know that there are churches that open their doors to you. I know you've had
yes.
small groups in churches, and I just think if more churches were to open their hearts
Mm,
to the idea that sex isn't dirty, but it's sacred,
yeah.
and what does it mean, I think a lot of relationships would survive if they had access to what you teach.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like sometimes I'm a PR person for healthy sex. Um, because it is avoided. But the thing is, not only does it benefit your marriage, when husband and wife are at that place of oneness, there is security in the home,
Yeah.
in the family. And so the children know, they sense this is a stable situation and they feel more freedom to pursue their dreams. So we live in our purpose more, our God given design more when this is taken care of. For so many couples, it's that nagging thing in the back of their thoughts, and they'll say, "Oh, everything's great in my marriage, except for my sex life." And I'm like, I'm glad other things are going well, but I have to tell you that if your sex life is struggling, then other things are struggling, and you're not even aware of it.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable now. And the reason I'm going to share this is because I do know that it's women that listen to this podcast, right? And they're trying to
Mm,
be the best version of themselves to show up in the world, some for their husbands and for their children. So in 2023, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had the blessing to be able to go to Mayo Clinic, and we have Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, right? So I was able to drive up there.
yeah.
And with that, I got access to tons of doctors because one of the things Mayo does well is they treat you as a whole person. So they don't
Mm,
treat me
hmm.
just for colon cancer, they treated me as a whole person. And part of that was meeting with a woman's doctor.
Ah,
And that woman's doctor went on to share the side effects of everything I was going to be going through. And part of that was you may lose your libido.
hmm.
And I choke up thinking about that because out of everything, every doctor appointment I had, the surgery that I had, chemo, everything, that was the one thing that brought me to tears.
Wow.
And it's kind of weird to say, but it's because I was like, I love my husband so much
Mm.
that I felt bad about how this was going to impact him.
Oh.
Crazy, crazy, because there's so many other things to worry about with that diagnosis. But it was, it's affecting my womanhood,
Mm,
obviously my reproductive organs,
hmm.
like everything, right? So it was really scary for me, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Well, I talked to my husband about it, and I'm so blessed to have a husband now. I'm in my second marriage as well. To have a husband I can openly talk about this stuff with.
Yes.
And I talked to him, and he's like the best man in the world, very understanding. And what's happened is chemo has pushed me into menopause a little early.
Okay.
So with that, like I will openly say without any shame, I have absolutely no libido, none.
Mm, hmm.
And I mean, I'm going to be so vulnerable, and I hope my husband doesn't get upset with me being so open, but like it's something that I've talked to him about, and he always asks, and I'm always willing to give because I
Mm,
love him and I know that he has needs. And now I'm actually going through, I've talked to doctors and stuff, and I'm going through the hormone therapy
hmm.
to help. And it's hard because Mike and I are very close emotionally, but there is
Hmm.
something special about that sexual
Right.
intimacy, right?
Right.
So it's something that I personally miss a lot. Um, I do get gratified during the process. It's the getting
Hmm.
there.
Getting there.
Yeah, and having a husband that I can be so open with and talk to about sex
Hmm.
is so helpful to
Hmm.
be able to, I mean, sometimes we joke about things, sometimes we're like in the middle of experiencing intimacy and we'll like make jokes and laugh, like we're
Yeah.
just very open that way. And it's something I didn't have
Hmm.
before.
Hmm.
And very one-sided and controlling. So this is why I love what you teach because I've never felt the pressure from you.
Mm.
It's more like this is a good thing, it's a beautiful thing. I want to help you enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like what in this regard, I will share what you do in the comments, but in this regard, because my audience shows that I have a lot of women like, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Uh-huh.
What is like your top one or two pieces of advice that you would give to a woman around this area of sex where our bodies are going through this crazy change and it may affect you physically?
Yes, well, it will definitely affect you physically. It's so crazy because our culture romanticizes relationships and makes it very unrealistic. And so they paint the picture of the ideal relationship is when you're in your 20s and everything is spontaneous and you're just so in the moment and woo. And that's wonderful and we can tap into that again, but that's not how life is. And so if you get past that and you're like, "Oh, we lost our love and feeling." No, you are just in a different season. And I've heard another speaker say, "Well, I've been married 5 times." And there's kind of a pause there. Well, it's to the same person, but our relationship has changed so much. It seems like 5 different marriages. And I would want to give that heads up to women. Your body will change and it will affect everything. It'll affect your emotions, your mental processes, and certainly your body. Now, what's beautiful about God's design, because He's not caught off guard by this, is that there is a difference between can my body respond to stimulation versus am I inclined to getting there in my natural thoughts. So it
Okay.
your body with the right types of touch and words and closeness, your body can become aroused even if you did not have that feeling before you started. And I use this analogy of a couple. They're going to go out for dinner one night, and the husband says, "Where do you want to go?" And she says, "Oh, I don't know. I don't care. Where do you want to go?" He says, "You want to do Italian, Mexican? Okay, we'll do Mexican." And they get there and they're looking at the menu and he says, "What do you want to eat?" "I don't know. I don't care. What are you going to get?" And he's looking at the menu. And about that time, one of the wait staff comes out with this massive tray in their hands and it's fajitas. And you can hear the sizzle and you can smell. I mean, the whole room is just caught up in this aroma and you see it as it goes by. You're just panning in slow motion and you're like, "I want that and I want it now." So this is what happens with desire is that you might not be thinking about it at all. But if you put all of the conditions in place, then you can have your body respond as well as your emotions. So what we used to say was the ultimate is if both husband and wife had an orgasm or even an orgasm at the same time, which is really rare. Now we're saying, hey, if my body and my emotions can actually get there at the same time, that is amazing. And if it doesn't happen, then as you said, you can laugh. Well, I lost it right there at that one point, and but you're still together and you still have the ultimate goal is connection, not necessarily exactly how the physical encounter will pan out. If you start into it connected and you come out the other side even more connected, then you have been successful.
That is so well said. So I just hope everyone heard what she said and go checks her out. I'll put all the links in the show notes so you can connect with Mary because I really think this is a topic that is so overlooked by the
Mm.
church. Women feel embarrassed sometimes by covering this topic, and I think it's been imposed by the church, the sense of embarrassment
Mm.
in a way, right? Because sex is seen as dirty. I have talked to my daughters about it. One's 17, one's 19, and yeah, she just turned 19 the other day. And it's something that it's not that it's dirty or
Right.
nasty, it's that it's sacred. Because what happens is when you teach these kids it's dirty, if they ever experience it, they're going to be like, no, it's kind of fun. It feels good.
Mm.
What are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about? So then they start to question everything else that you've taught
Oh,
them to believe.
yeah, yeah.
Right? What else is really fun and they've told me it's bad, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that sex is bad, it's that it's sacred and it
Mm-hmm.
was designed for a specific reason, which I love because I'm all about living God's design for humanity,
Yeah,
and this is part of it. And I believe it's, yes, it's for procreation, but it's also for the enjoyment of,
absolutely.
right, within a couple.
Oh, right. And there's so much bonding because it makes you stronger
Yes.
emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's get into the topic. We are here to talk about diligence, and it's one of the character traits in the devotional I have for the Proverbs 31 woman. And when I asked all the lady friends that I have, invited them on the podcast, I asked which one they would relate with, and diligence
Hmm.
was one that you had put on the list. So I would love to know why. Why is it one that you picked?
It did jump out at me. And I believe God has led me through so many things that I needed to be diligent to get through and to not stay stuck
Mm,
on the other side. And I I couple that with resiliency because I know it's not just being consistent and following through even when you don't see results. I know I need to encourage myself and to go back to, okay, God, what did you promise me? I know your promises are true. I'm going to believe that. Even if this thing has come up that seems like an obstacle or a detour or is very unpleasant at the moment, I know that what you've promised is on the other side of this immediate situation. And so I'm going to trust you and keep on trusting you and keep on doing what you've called me to, knowing that this too shall pass, and I believe that it's easier to gain, it's easier to steer your bike if it's in momentum. Like if you're sitting on a bicycle and you have to go uphill, which is sort of like getting over that obstacle. If you're just sitting still, it's going to be really difficult. But if you already have the pedals in motion, then you can go up, you can steer. All of that is much easier. So keeping on by God's grace, putting my faith, partnering my faith with what He said. That is how I am holding on to diligence.
awesome. So you mentioned resiliency and diligence,
Hmm.
and you are definitely the queen of metaphors because I love the pictures you paint with your words. Um, how would you like diligence is one of those words that I think everyone knows, but
Mm,
what does it really mean? So what to you, what does diligence mean? How would you define it or explain it?
that I'm going to keep myself steady and consistent and going back to what God's guidance has been. What is the next thing I need to do? Just staying on the path, staying on the path.
How would you, one of the biggest uh I I can't think of the word right now, but one of the biggest cruxes within Christianity is the concept of grace versus striving, right?
Oh, okay.
So working really hard to get things done versus, having the grace and just, the way people use grace nowadays is just like you're just going with the flow.
Uh,
But when I hear you talk about diligence, I hear there's a plan
mm,
and you're going to keep moving, right? You see a hill, you're not going to stop.
hmm.
You're going to go over it. How would you describe the difference between like what does diligence look like versus striving?
Well, it's interesting. In my reading today, I was in Hebrews 4, which is talking about entering that place of rest.
Mm,
And I realized verse 1, it was referring back to chapter 3. And I'm like, okay, well, of course, I need to find out what was going on even before this came up. And I see that they were invited yet again to enter this place again. Rest again, one more time you can enter in. So I realized that this is people from all time have had an issue with trusting God, being in rest, and going forward. And I took it, it was very timely. Mary, are you taking all of this in your own strength? Are you being overly responsible? And that's actually not trusting God
Mm-hmm.
and not resting. Or are you just putting your faith to work? And it is something that I think about often. If and I know when I've crossed the line, because if I'm not at peace inside, then I obviously have taken it on too much on my own and I'm not in rest at that moment.
Yes, I love that. It's you do feel the peace. I feel
Hmm.
like when we're overextending ourselves, you feel that anxiety,
Yeah.
right? The pressure.
Hmm.
There's a good pressure that makes you stronger, but there's the bad pressure. And I do feel like we know the difference.
Hmm.
Also, just came to mind, striving oftentimes I feel like is more around, I'm going to use the word people pleasing. You're
Mm.
trying to earn, even God, you're trying to earn acceptance from God, earn love from God or from other people. You're trying to please the people in your church or, whoever you're around.
Yeah.
And then it makes you do things that you don't even want to do or you
Mm.
shouldn't even do. Instead of following the purpose God has given you, you're trying to accomplish something just to please other people.
And that does not last long. Or if you try to live that way, oh my goodness, it just multiplies any insecurity. It really takes you off track.
Yes, for sure. So you had mentioned earlier why diligence came up. Is there a situation in your life where you felt where you were called to live out diligence? Like, why did the situation, are you okay with sharing the
Oh,
story that caused
yes.
you?
Oh,
Yeah, so share
yes.
that with us because I think that would be such a great testimony.
Well, it is a part of even the work I do today. People often ask me, how on earth did you get into your work? And especially when I say I'm a Christian sex educator, and like, wait, those words can go together? I don't understand. Well, years ago, and it's pushing 19 or so, my marriage was struggling, previous marriage was struggling, and I didn't understand all the reasons why. And just randomly, how God uses things on Yahoo News popped up, which I don't even know if it's a thing anymore. Anyhow, there was a headline to an article, and it said, "Your mother-in-law wants to know about your sex life." And I'm like, what? Let me do one of those cartoon double takes there because those words did not need to go in the same sentence. But it got my attention. I read the article. In essence, it was she knew, the mother-in-law knew that if her son's marriage was had a vibrant sex life, that they'd be okay.
Hmm.
And I think it was such an objective point of view that I got it because I had been so indoctrinated by the church of you have to stay married. And even if your husband does A, B, and C, you still have to stay married and you have to adjust to them. It was very warped teaching. And what came next was the decision to leave my marriage. And that was incredibly difficult. And through the process of the divorce, I lost my husband, but at that point, we had not really been close. We had not had that emotional bond. There had been so much striving and certainly abuse cycles and things that were going on. So that was one thing. But I lost my children in that they sided with their dad.
Mm.
And that just broke me. But I lost more. I lost my house. I lost my dog. I lost my job. I lost my church. I was just cut off and floundering and felt like I could die, but I absolutely did not want to die. I'm so thankful that God was there. He never ever left me. But that rebuilding process was excruciating. Everything that I had believed up to that point, I had to question. I wasn't deconstructing, but I had to find out, is this true? because what I had believed that I thought the church had been teaching about marriage, I see it really wasn't true, or my perception of it was not accurate. And I had to go back and ask God, what about this idea? And through that time, as I said, I had moved away. I'd gone back to school. I was living in student housing as a 40 something when I went back for my master's degree. And on spring break, there were signs on the doors in the stairwell about use protection while you're away on spring break. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know how old I am now. But that was a season of diligence. Am I going to trust you? And he opened amazing doors. I had only planned on going back to school to get enough credits to update my teaching certificate. But they said, well, actually, we are going to allow you to double dip. These credits that you take for your teaching certificate, you could apply to a master's degree. And I'm like, master's degree? I wasn't even thinking about that. But I looked into it, and then I needed to take the MAT test, and it was available, and I passed like boom, boom, boom. In 6 weeks, my life was radically different. It wasn't all taken care of, but I had a new path and a new plan. And I'm like, oh God, if you can do this, if you can begin that resurrection in me, then you're worthy of trusting, which he was all along. But it was at a new level. And I was more alive because I had just been numbed out because of the pain for decades. And now I felt things differently, but God was so good and he just kept leading me through it.
What a story, Mary. Wow, that is such a testimony. I did not know that journey out because I can
Mm,
say when I chose to leave my previous marriage, I felt like God told me to, and I didn't
mm.
understand it. I thought I heard wrong
Ah,
because it wasn't in the cards. You don't
hmm.
even if there is abuse, I mean, I grew up where yeah, adultery is the only valid reason to divorce, but even still you should really forgive and just move on.
Right, right.
And in my case, I mean, there was drugs, there was alcohol, there was abuse of every kind, and then come to find out there was a baby with another woman. So by the
Oh,
time I left, all these things had happened,
hmm.
and it was still hard.
Yeah.
Didn't make it any easier. This is how important marriage is and how serious it is when you enter into a relationship, because it really is, you become one, and then that separation, there is a hurt that comes with it.
Hmm.
And then
Yes.
to rebuild yourself. I started over. Just
Hmm.
the other day, I did a video and I had said, 98% maybe more of the people who are in my life today don't know my ex, because
Right.
I literally started over
Hmm.
twice actually. So you know, it's amazing to hear stories like that because I feel like it gives other women hope.
Yes.
It may be hard. Yes, like we're not saying it's not hard, and we're not standing on the other side of this thing saying, you're not going to go through it as hard as we did. Like, no,
Hmm.
I have the feeling you will, right?
Yeah.
But what we can tell you is that the other side is so beautiful that it's
Yeah.
worth the pain, in my opinion and experience, right?
Yes.
But the
Yes.
diligence to get through it, even the diligence in faith to hang on to God with every single thing that you have and say, I'm going to be diligent in my faith.
Amen.
I'm not going to let other people take it away from me, make me doubt it. I know God is with me and I refuse to think otherwise.
Hmm.
Right? So that's amazing. And to go back to the example you gave of the hill, right? When you're
Uh-huh.
bicycling up a hill, it's the momentum. Like you went back to school and
Hmm.
you did what you needed to do. And as you were doing that, in that momentum, you were given an opportunity. If you weren't it, if that momentum wasn't happening already, you would not have been given that opportunity to get your
Mm.
master's. The
Right.
reason that opportunity presented itself is because I'm so glad that you pulled up a chair and are joining us in this conversation. I truly hope that you're enjoying it. But I wanted to take a quick pause. If you want to go deeper, I want to invite you to join us with the In Her Image Book Club. On March 23rd, we started a new book called The Journey. It's my first published book. It's an interactive Bible study, and I'm so excited because what we're doing differently is we are meeting together every single Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. If this is something you're interested in joining, it's completely free, and I would love to have you there. Just go to andreajohn.com/IHI Book Club to sign up. See you there. Now let's get back to that conversation.
Right.
The reason that opportunity presented itself is because you were already moving.
Yeah.
And there's a scripture that says God will guide you and tell you as you're moving, he will tell you go right or go left.
Yeah.
It doesn't say he'll tell you when to move and he'll tell you when to go. No, it's as you're moving, he will give you direction.
Right.
But the moving has to happen first.
It
So,
makes me think of a Miles Monroe quote that God has a plan for you, but he will not plan for you. So, and we know there's other passages from Proverbs about the what a man's plans are in his own mind versus what God's plans are. But the thing is, it's joining God in his plan, and that always takes action on our part.
yes. And the action really is a sign of faith.
Mm,
That's where faith and works are together
yeah.
because in order for you to demonstrate your faith, to reveal your faith, it involves action,
Hmm.
right? And to trust God. So thanks for sharing that testimony because I think, it will help so many women have the hope that there is something for them, as
Yes.
and it's not just for women who find themselves in that situation,
Right.
but if you're going through a difficult situation, no matter what that is, you, to keep pushing through, knowing that God is with you and
Hmm.
he is pleased with you. Um,
And I have a happy ending that I want to
okay,
share.
yes.
So, because the greatest heartache for me at that point was losing the relationship with my daughters. And it's not like we were completely cut off, but the closeness was not there.
Mm-hmm.
Since they both have become mothers, married and mothers and children, they have included me in their life so much that I get to really, really a core issue. I get to keep my oldest grandson 1 day a week. We have a new grandson. He's 10 weeks old. They want me to be a part of their life. They value that. I have just been elevated in the ranks. And then my other daughter just told me she's expecting, and she's like, and you will be here in October to watch her other son when I go to the hospital. And I'm like, yes, I will be there. So the distance that was in the in between years doesn't exist anymore. We are at that place of closeness, and they have trusted me with their most valuable possession, their babies. So I always want to add that because God didn't stop even when he got me out of the mire, but he continued to guide me. And now I'm at this place that is better than I could have imagined.
It's restoration,
Yeah, yeah.
right? What a redemption story. And it's, one of the things that Mike and I, we've been over the years, we've been mentored by people. And one of our mentors, one of the things he always spoke on was, and in a way, it could be diligence, it's consistency,
Mm,
right? Being true to who you are, doing things not because you have to, not to be promoted, not to be seen, but to do it because
sure.
that's just who you are. And over time, I believe firmly that the truth prevails
Mm,
always. And sometimes it takes a little bit for people to see the truth.
right.
But and but it does prevail. It does
Mhm.
win out every single time. We just can't move in fear. We have to
Right.
stay confident in that truth. It's like our feet need to be planted in the truth. We need to rest in it. I always say I don't ever defend myself.
Yeah.
I may speak the truth, but
Hmm.
I'm never going to defend myself against lies because eventually the truth comes out, right? I'll just keep
100%.
speaking the truth. And I say that because over the years, especially when you're in ministry or working with people, there's always those that don't like a decision you make, or
Mm,
something goes awry and they'll criticize you, or someone will hear someone gossip about you and then get a
hmm
bad impression of you, even though they don't really know you.
hmm
And this is why I say we don't ever defend ourselves. We've been taught to not do that because over time, people are watching. They're always, especially in a day of
Right.
social media, right? And they're going to see where the consistency lies. Where is the diligence? Where is the pursuit of God, of love, of truth? And
Hmm.
usually the place where the gossip came from or the divisiveness came from
Yeah.
tends to fall away, right?
Hmm.
Something happens and now it's almost like sometimes they're a different person or they've changed tune, but then they see you and they're like, wait, maybe they weren't the problem,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
This is why you don't ever have to go and speak ill of someone who bashes you.
Yeah.
You just have to keep your eyes on God, right?
Yes.
So in your case, that's what I see. I see a mom who got the short end of the stick at one point,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
You did what you felt was best. You, the situation happened with your daughters, but over time, and as they grew and matured,
Right.
they were able to look back and be like, I think maybe I understand a little bit more. And it's not so bad. I tell my daughters all the time, I recognize that you will never appreciate everything I do for you until you become a mom. And I'm okay with that. I tell them I am
Hmm.
absolutely okay with the fact that you don't comprehend because I know
Yeah.
you cannot comprehend
Hmm.
until you become, right?
Sure. Whenever that
So,
responsibility level changes for them, then they have a new appreciation.
right. And it's the motive of love, right?
Mm.
Everything, like the step was done out of love.
Hmm.
And love is defined by God, not by our humanistic,
Hmm.
tendencies or what we see. But that's a beautiful redemption story that also speaks to the diligence of continuing on, even when it looks a little hopeless or it's a little bit dark. You're not
Right.
getting what you feel is just and fair.
Hmm.
But if you keep pursuing truth and you keep your relationship with God and you do what He's called you to do, the hope is always that everything kind of will come back, right? What's been lost will be found. What's
Yes.
been
Yes.
broken will be restored.
Hmm.
Ushering in shalom.
Yeah.
That is, that's our call as peacemakers, as people who pursue God's justice. That's shalom,
Hmm.
restoring what's been broken.
Amen. Amen.
Yep, got to keep pushing, even when it's hard. Anna is at this point in the year where she's deciding, do I go back to school next year and wrestle? Or
Mm.
do I call it and come home and go to school? Like she's trying to figure it out because one, it's very costly for her to be where she's at.
Sure.
And two, I mean, you got a Florida girl up in Iowa. It's harder than she thought it was going to be. And I had to explain to her that, Hebrews 12 talks about endurance and it talks about there's a cloud of witnesses and
Hmm.
we're running a race and we have to let go of those things that weigh us down. And it gives us the example of Jesus and how Jesus got through the cross and he did it by setting his eyes on the joy set before him.
Yeah.
So, the joy set before you, what is that joy that's
Hmm.
going to allow you to be diligent and to keep moving despite how hard it is?
Hmm. And that may change. And her goals, everybody's goals, they may change along the way, which doesn't mean you're even second guessing yourself. It may be,
Right.
oh, I have a new layer of understanding. I have
Hmm.
God's revealed some things, that things have been defined for me, and that's great to make those adjustments.
Yes. So it's, I was asking her, you need to figure out what that joy is. What's
Hmm.
the joy?
Yeah.
Because once you have your eye on that joy, it's going to be easier for you to, when you're at that fork in the road, to figure out which way is going to get me to that joy.
Yeah.
And when you have that and you take the time to think through it, no matter what you choose, you'll never regret it.
Oh, amen. That is so true. Yeah.
And when it gets hard, you're like, but that's okay because the
Hmm.
joy, I got the joy even when it's hard. I've gone through some hard things just as you have, and where I am in my life, like I'm not financially wealthy. I'm like just a normal person, right? I've gone through lots of hell, even even recently, but I love my life.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for everything I've gone through because I don't feel like I would be who I am today if it wasn't for those things.
Right. I mean, there's the refining process and knowing that you can trust God through it and you're coming out maybe different than you thought, but it's always the best possible because you've partnered with God.
Yes. So to end it, the one question I always ask is if you had one piece of advice, of
Mm.
practical advice you can give to a woman on how she can live out this character trait or become better at it, what would it be? What's one actionable thing that someone listening today could do immediately to help her be more diligent in life?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'm a little surprised by what came to me, but it is to find what brings you joy,
Mm.
not what makes me happy and what can I do for me, but that deep place of joy of I've stepped into my purpose and I feel alive and I know that this is more and more and more of what God's called me to be. Because if that part of you is functioning and in the driver's seat, then diligence is just okay, we're just going to buckle up here. That's just a tool. The joy, and it is similar to the passage you shared about Jesus and the joy of his reward, but we can function from our place of joy. And I love living in Florida and being outside and just like going out and staring at the trees and nature. Thank you, God. It makes me come alive. I've had a couple of careers in nature before, but right now it's just the place where I come alive and get refueled and then can get back into the other things that I'm called to do. So you have to know what brings you joy from a purpose standpoint and then also from a refueling standpoint.
Oh, I love that because those are two different things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the work and the play.
Yeah.
If I work hard, I can play hard, and then when I play hard, it helps me work hard,
Yes, yes.
which is
That's
why
good.
rest is important, Sabbath's important, vacation's
Mm.
important, right? Because
Hmm.
I know I was just recently on vacation and this week I came back and it was crazy at work, but I did feel refreshed
Hmm.
because I love being on the water. So I was on a ship. We were on a cruise, right? I'm like you. I love being outdoors. I love, we have a boat. We have boats and boat rental business
Hmm.
because the boat rental business helps us pay for the boats.
Right.
So we have them, right? And I just love like me going on a trail, walking in nature is one of
Mm.
those, oh, I could just breathe a little bit deeper.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then when I come here and I sit behind my desk and I have a full-time job, but I also feel like the ministry I do is a full-time job as well because it takes up just as much time.
Right.
But like when I'm here, like talking to you or working, writing, whatever I'm doing, it brings me so much joy.
Mhm.
It's why I do it. It's hard work, but I stay
Yes.
diligent in it. And one of the things that helps me stay diligent is exactly what you're saying. It's the joy set before it. So I always envision a woman, I have like an ideal person that I'm trying to reach. And
Mm.
I'm like, if I can help a woman wake up every day excited to live that day,
Yeah.
this is why I wake up every single morning because
Mm.
that's how I live now. Even when days are
Hmm.
difficult, I live with that excitement of, what's this day gonna bring? And sometimes it's not great. Like Monday, I did not have a great day. But then Wednesday, I had an amazing day. And then,
Ah.
but still, it's exciting. And I just want every woman, regardless of the stage of life you're in, right? You're young,
Hmm.
you're, in college, you're recently married, maybe you have a kid or two or five or six, or you have grandkids or you're
Hmm.
retired. Like, I want you to wake up every day excited for life.
Yeah.
And it's why I wanted to share relationships that I have like you with the ladies I have, because I feel like you all have something to offer that's different from what I have to offer.
Mm.
And so, with that being said, can you share with everyone how, like, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
Yes, my business website is limitlessintimacy.com.
Okay.
And there I've got books and the podcast and YouTube videos and all kinds of things. And on social media, you can find me under my name, Mary Whitman Ortiz.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes for people to connect. If
Mhm.
you're local in Jacksonville, if she ever does an event, I definitely recommend that you go and check it out, reach out to her. And thank you, Mary, so much for taking the time to chat with us today and to share all your gold nuggets of wisdom, because I think that everyone's going to walk away with some nuggets to put in their little treasure box.
That's
So
awesome.
thank
It
you.
was totally my pleasure.
Lady, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Before you go, I want to share something with you. Our stats show that most of you come back and listen every week, which is incredible and humbling and truly means so much. But most of our listeners actually aren't subscribed. If you'd like to help increase the reach of In Her Image, one of the simplest ways you can do that is by subscribing to the podcast. Subscribing helps the platform know this content matters and allows these conversations to reach more women who need them. You can also help by sharing an episode with a friend, letting them know that, hey, I listened to this and it was a blessing to me, and I think it can bless you too. Or you can leave a review. You can like, you can comment. All of these small actions make such a big difference. I want to thank you for being here and for being part of this and helping us grow. Until next time, keep becoming who God made you to be.